Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and today I'm going to be looking at who should be Chelsea's player of the season. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. But as I was saying, player of the season, who should it be for Chelsea? I put out a tweet yesterday on my account asking you guys for your opinions and your lists of the top 5 candidates. There was pretty much a consensus on who should be in that list, so I'll go through mine. But before I do, I just want to give some honourable mentions to players who just didn't make it, but I still think deserve credit and deserve a bit of praise for their performances this season. Firstly, Jorginho, one of my favourite players on the Chelsea squad. I think the story of Jorginho has been really positive. I think the fact that the turn of opinion in support to be more positive about Jorginho and understand what he can do for Chelsea this season from fans who maybe weren't as favourable to him last season under Sarri, I think has been really positive, and I think has made this season much more enjoyable in terms of talking about players. And I think you see what the impact he has on his best days. Yes, there are flaws to his game, but I still think on his best day, being the metronome, that pass against Watford, still Chelsea's pass of the season, and maybe pass of the season in the Premier League. Truly stunning, and shows you what he's capable of if he has good movement in front of him. Another player, Christian Pulisic, I think has had a really good debut season for Chelsea, coming in from Germany, coming in from Borussia Dortmund for a high fee. He had some struggles early on, but I think once he got into the first team, some absolutely exceptional individual performances that show you the player we've got on our hands here if we give him time. So he deserves a mention. Reece James as well could have been on my list. I think just in terms of playing time, I think probably he could have had a bit more to get on the list, but in the time he has had, he's been so impressive, hasn't he? You know, what he's been able to really transform an area of the pitch that has needed transforming for a while. I think he'll be probably Chelsea's player of the season maybe next season. I think this has been his breakthrough year, but I think he's going to go to another level next season, and he will be the future of Chelsea's defence for sure, especially at fullback. He's going to be a key component of that. And as well, Kurt Zouma has been named as well as a player that I think should be given a mention. I think considering where he was last season at Everton on loan, I think there weren't many fans who would have thought he would have come back to Chelsea and been a first-team player, but he has under Frank Lampard because of the transfer ban. I think he benefited off of that. Whether he can remain a Chelsea first-team player, we're going to have to wait and see, but I think based on performance of defenders who struggled, I think he's probably top of the list for me, so Kurt Zouma. But let's go into my top 5. Firstly, it's the obvious one. It's Mateo Kovacic, who has been transformed under Frank Lampard. Naked eye over stats, that's what I want to say, because yes, you can throw at me that he hasn't scored a bundle of goals. He probably doesn't have a bundle of assists, but the reason there's a consensus from a lot of Chelsea fans on why Kovacic should be named player of the season, his directness, his influence on a football pitch for Chelsea has been so key and vital in certain situations. You know, breaking through opposition presses, the dribbling ability, the tackling ability, sometimes being the pass before the pass, which is an underestimated thing in football that I think Jorginho sometimes suffers from. But that consistency of performance really has elevated him for me on this list. I think when you're looking at players who week in, week out have put in good performances, and when you watch Kovacic on a football pitch, it's so delightful watching him dribble past players. Some of the wonderful crossfield passes he's been able to execute this season. And I look at that Bayern Munich performance in particular, which of course was a very disappointing night for Chelsea. But in Frank Lampard's own words, the only player wearing blue that night that could compete with the level of Bayern Munich was Mateo Kovacic, which says a lot. And I think in midfield, he's going to be so key. Even if he doesn't score a bundle of goals, that doesn't mean he can't be a big influence in Chelsea's midfield. Look at John Obi Mikel, how big he was for a number of years for Chelsea. And it's interesting, I'm doing this video on the day of John Obi Mikel's birthday. But I think just look at Kovacic. I think he will be a key component of Chelsea's midfield going forward. So Mateo Kovacic, probably for a lot of people, is player of the season. Number 2 is Tammy Abraham, Chelsea's highest goal scorer this season with 15 to his name. Not many people predicted that at the start of the season. I did for the whole season, and I was called ridiculous. But, you know, we haven't even finished the season. The season could be completed still, and Tammy could add to that. But still, 15 for a player of his age, with all the doubts, with all the criticism over him, the pressure of getting that number 9 shirt, and the confidence of Tammy Abraham. When you watch him on a football pitch, he is so infectious, that personality he has, the way he's improved, his all-round play, being able to hold up the ball, shield it, bring other players into play, the pace, the movement, really elevates him above some of the other strikers at Chelsea. And I think those goals, you know, some of those individual performances, you look at a game at Norwich where 2 goals got Chelsea their first Premier League win of the season, 2 brilliant strikes. the stunning hat-trick at Wolves, which is his best performance of the season, absolutely mesmerising that day, and showed you the level that Tammy Abraham can get to on his best day. He absolutely destroyed the Wolves defence that day. And of course, the Arsenal winner as well, another one to pick out. What a goal that was, the movement to secure Chelsea a massive 3 points when it looked like Chelsea could have lost that game. He'll come back in next season refreshed and revitalised to compete for that position once again. No matter who Chelsea bring in, I think Tammy still will be Frank Lampard's first choice, and hopefully by this time next season he'll be on 20 goals. Next is Mason Mount. I think for the number of games Mason Mount has played, 41 in total, 6 goals and 5 assists, I think he has to be in contention. For the age, a bit like Tammy Abraham, to play that amount of games, to have that pressure on you to play week in, week out, and the trust that Frank Lampard has given to Mason Mount through some difficult periods. I think the versatility within Mount this season has sometimes been an issue to understand what Mount's best position is, but still to be able to play left wing, cam, central midfield, the left of a midfield three, and to do all of that and to take it in his stride and work and get better over the season, I think is why Mount deserves praise. He's got that talent. You see it within him. You can see the flair. That goal against Aston Villa, that winner, which probably isn't talked about a lot, but I think is one of the best strikes of the season, and shows you the confidence and the raw nature of Mason Mount that makes him such a lovable player for fans. There's a sense that Mount will try audacious things on a football pitch. Sometimes they won't work, but sometimes they will, and they'll be incredible for Chelsea. Chelsea need a goal-scoring midfielder, and maybe Mason Mount can be that for coming through those difficult periods. And I think just before football was suspended, he was coming back into form and scoring that brilliant goal against Everton. I think shows you the talent we've got here if we let it develop. So Mason Mount, next player on my list. Willian is going to be next. The criticism and proving people wrong. Willian, if this is to be his last season, I think he's gone out on a high. There's been so many critics of Willian, harsh critics over the years of his time at Chelsea. But I think once again, the fact that Willian again made himself a regular under another Chelsea manager shows you what coaches at the top level think of Willian and what he can offer to the team. His workload has never been in doubt. I think the fact that his work rate on a football pitch is one of the most impressive I've seen watching Chelsea. Not only what he gives you going forward, but going in the other direction defensively, which is why earlier in the season he was keeping out the likes of Christian Pulisic. And I actually think younger players like Pulisic and HUDSON-ODOI have helped Willian keep fresh, keep focused, to keep on striving to be the best player in that position, which I think in previous seasons Willian hasn't had that competition, which I think maybe has seen his level of performance drop. But this season I think it's been kept at a good rate, and I think that world-class performance against Spurs has to be mentioned. Not just his brilliant strike and the penalty, but also his all-round play that day was astonishing, which is why he was man of the match that day. And he's had some other brilliant performances as well, and I think, as I say, a good way to go out. And I think he's one of those players that Lampard has leaned on for the experience and the winning experience Willian has. I think that you can never discount that, and it's something in the Chelsea dressing room we're going to miss and we're going to have to replace if he is to leave. So as I say, I think Willian, even through all the critics, I think will be well thought of when he leaves Chelsea. So it's good that he went out on a high this season, so he's on my list. And lastly, one of the older names as well in the dressing room, Cesar Azpilicueta. Again, proving people wrong. He proved me wrong, because right at the start of the season, I didn't think he was going to be a regular, consistent starter for Frank Lampard, but he has been that, competing once again with a younger player in Reece James. We spoke about Reece James. We know Reece James is going to be the future of that position, but I think the experience and leadership by performance once again by Dave has been incredible. I think he's one of those players that I think will go down as a legend. I know that's a heavy term to put out, but I think you just got to look at the staying power of Cesar Azpilicueta at Chelsea. I think the fact that the versatility that have made him a mainstay of Chelsea's defence for a number of years, being able to play under several coaches at right back, centre back, left wing back, right wing back, the fact that a manager knows they can rely on Dave to do a number of those things and be that versatile makes him a key figure, and why he is one of the most appreciated names in the Chelsea squad. I think Ajax away is probably the high point of his season, I think, in terms of just personally for me, performance levels. But I think it says a lot that just before football was suspended, Frank Lampard played Cesar Azpilicueta in both those games against Liverpool and Everton, both clean sheets, both victories, and it shows you still what Azpilicueta will offer. I think he's got at least one more year left at Chelsea, and the professionalism of him, some of the quotes about passing the torch to Reece James eventually, but to have that competition, to have that experience to lean on for not only Frank Lampard, Lampard, but for Reece James is key. So after all of that, after all those names, looking at them, I'm still going to go with Mateo Kovacic. Yes, I'm going to take the easy route and go with the consensus. But that is my personal opinion, and it isn't as clear as some other people. Tammy is a very close second. You have to look at the goals of Tammy Abraham this season. What he's done, those impressive stand-up performances, scoring goals as Chelsea's number 9 and taking the weight of that shirt when other older players we've seen recently haven't been able to take it and haven't been able to impress, but Tammy has. He's going to come again, and I think he will potentially be Chelsea's player of the season next year. But for me, the reason why Kovacic is my player of the season is, as I said at the start, consistency of performance. That's why week in, week out, impressing, proving doubters wrong, becoming a major player under Frank Lampard. And if we cast our minds back before Chelsea made the move from Real Madrid permanent, there was a lot of people who didn't want that move. There was a lot of people who said 40 million was too much. Well, now for me, 40 million looks like an absolute bargain and an absolute steal for a player who has all the capability to be a big world-class midfielder for Chelsea in the coming years. So for me, player of the season for Chelsea is Mateo Kovacic. But those are my opinions, guys. Now I pass it over to you. I'm going to leave a poll in the cards up above the video where you can vote out of the names I've talked about for your player of the season. And not only that, get down in the comments, tell me why the player of your choice is the player of the season, and talk about some of your favorite moments. Why has that player been so good this season? Also, tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me some of the names in this list that I haven't put in, some of those honorable mentions, and explain why they should be in this list as well. I'm really intrigued to hear your thoughts as ever. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea. And I'll see you again.